Welcome back, everybody. This week's Torah portion is Ekev. The word Ekev in Hebrew is translated as because in this week's portion. Let's go to Rabbi Abuchatzera's Pituchei Chotam, where he's giving a commentary on the word Ekev, which is the name of this week's Parasha. The word Ekev literally means heel, like the heel of a foot, the back part of the foot. It's called the heel, and it's spelled Ein Kuf Vet. Numerical value 172 for those who are interested. In any case, אפשר לומר בדרך רמז על מה שאמר הלשון הזה דעקב. One can say, as a hint, regarding the use of this language, עקב. בהקדים מה שכתב רבנו הרב חיים ויטל בשם רבנו האריזל, ספר הליקוטים פרשת בו. By first introducing what our teacher of blessed memory, the Arizal, wrote in Sefer Alikutim, Parashat Bo. דהצלם שראה נבוכדנצר הוא כנגד הגלות שגלו ישראל בבבל, מדי ויוון ואדום. That the tselem, the image that Nebuchadnezzar saw, corresponds to the exile that Israel endured in Babylon, Mede, Greece, and Rome. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about and they're completely lost, let me take you to the book of Daniel in chapter 2, verse 31 to 33. In that section from the book of Daniel, it describes an image, a tselem, a vision that Nebuchadnezzar had. I'm going to read you those verses. O king, you were watching, and behold, one great image, an image which had a large base and with unusual splendor, was standing opposite you, and its form was frightening. That tselem had a face of fine gold. Its breast and its arms were of silver. Its belly and thighs were of copper. Its legs were of iron, and its feet were partly of iron and partly of clay. Nebuchadnezzar is the king of Babylon. And Abuchatzera is telling us that these verses found in the book of Daniel are referring to the vision that Nebuchadnezzar had about this human form that has different types of minerals as its composition. The head of this statue, the head of this image that Nebuchadnezzar was seeing in his dream or in his vision was made of gold, etc. He gives all the details of what this tselem, this image, looks like. And Abuchatzera is telling us that this image that he saw, it actually corresponds to the exile that Israel endured in Babylon, in Mede, Greece, and Rome. The Babylonian exile, the Median exile, the Greek exile, and the Roman exile, which we are in right now. At this current moment, we're in the Roman exile as of still. And the head of the tselem, if you look at the verse, is made of gold. Abuchatzera continues. Harosh shel hatselem hu keneged galut Bavel. The head of the image, of the statue, the form, whatever you want to translate this word, the word in Hebrew is tselem. Tzadi lamed mem. That means image. So the head of this image corresponds to the Babylonian exile. ולפיכך אמר לו דניאל עליו השלום, דניאל ב' ל"ח, אנט הוא רישא די דהבה. And that's why, if you go a few verses forward in the book of Daniel chapter 2, skip to verse 38, he says, you are the head of gold. Who is he referring to when he says you? This is Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. So you can reread that verse from Daniel chapter 2, verse 38. You are the head of gold, as you, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, correspond to the head of the tselem, which is made of gold. That's Abuchatzera's commentary here, that this head corresponds to the Babylonian exile. והעקביים של הצלם הם כנגד אדום שהיא גלות אחרונה. and the heels of this tzelem, the heels of this image, correspond to the Roman exile, which is the final exile. The Roman exile is the one we're in right now, as I've explained already. But there are really two aspects to it, as we're going to learn going forward. Because ומאחר שהעקביים הם שניים, and like I said, since there's two heels, לפיכך הגלות הזו האחרונה מעורבים בה שניים. Therefore, this exile is mixed in with two, Edom ve'Ishmael, Rome and Ishmael. Rome, or Edom, corresponds to Western civilization. In today's age, Edom corresponds to the West. Ishmael corresponds to the Arab nations. Those are what we refer to as Ishmael. And that's why we are in the Roman exile, meaning the Jewish people, the people of Israel, are exiled among the Western civilizations. And currently they're being persecuted by many on the Ishmael side, which is what we call Hamas, what we call radical extremists, right? Specifically from the Arabian demographic. Now, we're going to see right now, if we open up our eyes, that this verse that we just read, this sentence that we just read, that it's the last exile, and there's two aspects of the exile, you will recognize that that's what's happening at this current moment. And that's how you can actually verify these words to not be made up by some rabbi somewhere in the cave. No. This is a revelation of divine wisdom before your very eyes. This video, this lecture that you're now watching, is explaining to you the situation that we are in right now. Thus, the order of the kingdoms corresponds to the form of the tzelem. You got to look at the tzelem. Imagine a human form. Now, first is Babylon. Corresponds to the head of this image. Bavel in Hebrew, spelled Bet Lamed. Then Madai and Paras correspond to the arms. Mede and Persia. One arm is Mede, the other arm is Persia. Then Greece, corresponding to the belly. And finally, Rome, corresponding to the legs and feet, which includes the heels. And as we already explained, there are two heels, there are 2 feet here. One of them is Rome, the other one is Ishmael. So, that's just a brief explanation of the exiles that Israel has gone through and that it is in right now. Now that we have that understood, that Nebuchadnezzar saw an image, and this image represents the exiles of Israel, I want to read you now another section from the Sefer where he brings the Zohar. Od ita bazohar hakadosh chelek bet resh nun chet aleph. Go to the Zohar, volume 2, 258a. Dizman hageula ad dematu raglin beraglin. That the time of the redemption is when the feet will be in the feet. When the feet are in the feet. That's what the Zohar says. I'm going to read that one more time. Zman hageula, the time of the redemption, ad dematu raglin beraglin, will be when the feet are in the feet. Let's explain what that means. Vehakavana, the intention. Lefi sheyesh adam dikdusha veyesh kenegdo adam blial. So, let's just take a second to really review. There are 10 sefirot on the side of holiness. And there are also 10 sefirot on the side of impurity. What's 10 sefirot? That means Adam. Adam is human. A human being is made of 10 sefirot. For those of you who don't remember, the right brain is Chokhmah. The left brain is Bina. Keter is above your head, really. It's above your head, where you put the kippah. Then chesed is your right arm. Gevura is your left arm. Tiferet is your torso. Netzach is your right leg. Hod is your left leg. Yesod is your private parts. And Malchut is where you're standing. This is the bottom of your feet. So, the same way that there are 10 Sefirot in the side of holiness, there are also 10 Sefirot on the side of impurity. And the way the Zohar refers to these two sets of 10 Sefirot is Adam Dikdusha, the man of holiness, and Adam de Blial, and the man of wickedness. So just remember that analogy, because the Zohar is describing whatever it's describing using imagery. It uses some sort of a imagination. You have to have a good imagination to be able to follow certain concepts that the Zohar brings, or Torah in general. Not to, God forbid, worship any of these images. Remember, you have to be very conscious to make sure you're not thinking that any of these images describe God. They don't describe God. They describe aspects and elements and attributes of the way we are trying to understand concepts in an intellectual way. But Hashem doesn't have a form. Hashem, in His true essence, doesn't have a form. So we have to really remember that. I don't think anybody here has a problem with idol worshipping. But I've been watching some things on the internet recently. I'm realizing idol worshipping is coming back. Really is coming back. It really never went away. Avodah Zarah, foreign worship. Anytime that we want to serve ourselves selfishly, that's a form of idol worshipping. You get angry, etc. But I'm talking about the real form of idol worshipping, where you would contact demons and angels and other forces and spiritual entities, and you would worship to them. You would sacrifice to those entities in order to get something in return. It's coming back. So, it's never a bad thing to be too careful when it comes to emphasizing this point, that God does not have a true form. He does not have any image associated with Him. The Torah says so extremely clearly. And we're commanded by the Torah to destroy all the idols. So, I want to make sure that that's very, very clear. Now, the Adam of wickedness, the 10 Sefirot on the side of the Sitra Achra, the nature of this Adam, this other side, impure side, is to absorb sparks of holiness. Really, the word to use is that it kidnaps it. It captures it. This, in the same way that there's captives in Gaza right now. This Adam of impurity, the nature of the Adam of impurity, is to absorb sparks, to kidnap and take sparks as captives. The reason why I'm using that type of terminology, Rabbi Abuchatzera is not saying that it's about kidnapping here. Here he's just saying that they become contaminated and it holds them within itself. But the reason I'm bringing this imagery is because it is described in other books of Kabbalah as kidnapping. These sparks of holiness, every time we make a sin, we cause sparks of holiness to descend into the grasp of the impure forces. And they're held there as captives. And it is then our responsibility to go down into the darkness, into Egypt, and rescue those sparks from captivity. The same way that Moses did so with the nation of Israel when they were enslaved by Egypt. This is the same situation that we find ourselves in today. The sparks of our soul are right now held captive in Egypt. And we have to go down there and rescue them. Rescue those sparks. Let's continue with Rabbi Abuchatzera's commentary. He says, Ein haketz kaleh ad sheyitbareru hanitzatzot mimenu velo yishaer bo shum nitzotz afilu beraglav. The end will not become complete until we have clarified the sparks from the atom of wickedness, so as not to remain even a single spark, even within the feet, which is the lowest part of this atom of wickedness. Every single spark that we have caused to descend into the midst of the klipot needs to become redeemed. Even the ones at the bottom of the pit, which is what we call the feet. Velo yishaer bo shum nitzutz. Not any spark will remain. Afilu beraglav, even on the feet. V'zehu she'amar ad dematu raglin beraglin. And this is why the Zohar says that the Messiah will not come until the feet are in the feet. That means that the sparks of holiness that we have caused to exit from the atom of holiness, from the 10 sefirot of Kedusha, into the 10 sefirot of impurity, need to be returned to the atom of Kedusha. The sparks that correspond to the feet of Atom de Kedusha get transferred to the feet of Atom of impurity, and we need to rescue those sparks to return them back to the feet of Atom de Kedusha. So when the Zohar says that the exile will not end until the feet are in the feet, that means that the exile will not end until these sparks, which correspond to the feet of the Atom of Kedusha, will be returned to their proper place in Atom of Kedusha, which is the feet. The sparks that correspond to the feet need to re-inhabit, need to be restored to their proper place, which is in the feet. We're using metaphors and imagery in order to convey spiritual messages. Let me give you another explanation of this concept. When Adam Harishon sinned, he caused the Adam Hablial to rule over the holy souls that were in Adam de Kedusha. When Adam, the first man, made the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, he caused the holy souls to become dominated by the other side, by the Sitra Achra. And these souls, which are sparks of holiness, belong to Adam de Kedusha. These souls belong to the Sitra de Kedusha, the side of holiness. And they became absorbed into all aspects of the Adam Hablial. They became absorbed into all the aspects of the Adam of wickedness, the Sitra Achra, from his head to his feet. So, this is really what happened when Adam Harishon sinned. All of the souls descended into the Sitra Achra. And the end is not complete until the sparks are clarified from him, from the Adam of wickedness. And no spark remains in him, not even in his feet. The birur, the clarification, the redemption of these sparks is done through prayers and doing mitzvot. That's how we really redeem these sparks. It's through tefillah, bekavana, with intention. Kavanat alev. The intention is in the heart. Praying should not just be lip service. It has to be service of the heart. Avodat halev. But it's also through doing the mitzvot. Performing commandments, following the rules, doing tefillin, wrapping phylacteries is just one of them. Observing the laws of Shabbat. These are all ways of redeeming these sparks. Of course, these all need to be bekavana. Every mitzvah you do needs to have kavana. It has a specific kavana that you got to learn. And in order to learn that kavana, you have to really study Torah. So, the way you're going to be redeeming these sparks, which we're talking about, is through three things: mitzvot, gamilut chasadim, and limud Torah. Here he's specifying prayer and doing mitzvot, commandments. But really it includes these three levels: mitzvot, doing good deeds, and learning Torah. Continuing, doing these things, praying and doing mitzvot, elevates maim nukvin. It elevates a certain type of energy, which is called in the wisdom of Kabbalah, feminine waters. You elevate the feminine waters, which causes a release of male waters, which means blessings, from above to below. Feminine waters go from below to above. It's our responsibility to send up a request. It's called elevating man, aliyat man, raising up feminine waters. That's what we do when we do mitzvot and when we pray. We're making a request. It's similar to what happens when we would make an offering. When you would sacrifice an offering, it triggers a release of male waters, which flow from above to below. And this is the secret of what it says in the Gemara, in the section of Yevamot 62a. The son of David will not come until all the souls in the body have been exhausted. Meaning, until all the souls will be in the bodies. Mashiach ben David, that means the true and final Redeemer, which will usher in the age of abundance, which we call Olam Haba, the world to come. He will only come once all the souls really inhabit all the bodies. That means all of these sparks, which are right now held captive on the side of impurity, need to be returned to their vessels, to their bodies, which correspond to the side of holiness. That's what this verse means. All parts of holiness that have been mixed into the body of Adam HaBlial are clarified. All of those sparks, which are in the Adam of wickedness, on the Sitra Achra, need to become clarified, and that's when the Messiah, son of David, will come. And this is what is meant when it says, when the feet are in the feet. That's why the Zohar says that the Messiah will only come when the feet are in the feet. Meaning until even the sparks in the feet of Adam HaBlial leave him and enter the feet of Adam, the Kedusha, that's when the feet are in the feet. Once we restore all of the sparks that have fallen into the side of impurity to their proper place, this is the final redemption. The sparks will exit from the feet of Adam HaBlial, from the man of wickedness, and enter the corresponding aspect in the feet of Adam the Kedusha. And they will be returned to their proper place in the holiness. Because when the Adam HaBlial took the sparks of holiness from Adam to Kedusha, each part of the holiness entered the corresponding part in the Klippa. The moment you make a sin, you cause sparks to go from extreme holiness to whatever degree of holiness it was, but it would be that same degree on the side of impurity. When these sparks are clarified, they return to their place in holiness. So when a person makes a sin using their head, meaning their mind, they cause sparks of holiness, which correspond to the head of holiness, to go over to the head of impurity. If you sin with your arm, you cause the energies, the sparks, which correspond to the arm of holiness, to go to the arm of impurity. You're transferring those lights, those energies, to the other side. A person, God forbid, makes a sin with their sexual organ. They cause the spiritual lights and the energies, the sparks, that correspond to that region in the side of holiness to go over to the side, to the corresponding side on impurity. That's why we need to return them back to their place. This is exactly like what was said about the current final exile of Edom and Ishmael, that it is the heels of the Tselem. Now Rabbi Apochatzera is making the connection. And this refers to the exile that we're in right now, which corresponds to the heels, the feet. Rome and Ishmael. The West and the Muslim world. The order of the exiles follows the order of the birur, of the clarification of these sparks. From the head down to the heels. Initially, we already explained, we were exiled in Babylon, which corresponds to the head. And then they clarified the sparks that were in the head of the other side. But in the final exile, which is the exile of Edom and Ishmael, which is the current exile we're in, corresponding to the legs, the sparks of the legs are clarified. The sparks of the feet need to become clarified. And the end of the exile is the aspect of the heels, which are the end of the legs. So that's why we said earlier that the final exile is Rome and Ishmael, corresponding to the heels. Just as the heels are at the bottom of the body, the exile of Rome and Ishmael is in the end of days, because we're clarifying the final sparks which are in the bottommost levels of the atom of wickedness, meaning the other side, corresponding to the feet, which is inclusive of the heels. And for this reason, the sages called the end of the exile the footsteps of the Messiah. That's why the sages call this time period the footsteps of the Messiah, because it corresponds to the feet. Right now, we are clarifying the feet of the Messiah. Meaning, when the sparks from the heels are clarified, the Messiah will come. Keshe yidbareru hanitzotzot miha'akavayim atei meshicha. The moment that we finish clarifying the sparks from the heels of the atom of wickedness, the Messiah will come. So this was the explanation that Rabbi Abachatzera gives on the word ekev, heels. And that's really our work in this generation. We've got dirty work to do, a lot of dirty work to do. But it's necessary. If we don't do it voluntarily, then we will be faced with a tremendous amount of pressure. As we can see, it is mounting more and more every single day to do teshuvah and to return those sparks back to their proper place. That's what October 7th was. It was an increase in the pressure. Ever since October 7th, anti-Semitism has risen tremendously all over the world. Things are moving. The pressure is mounting. The more we avoid our own spiritual work, the greater the storm that we are building to turn against us. Eventually, whether for us or for our children, God forbid. If you don't care about yourself, think about your children. What they're going to have to go through in order to clarify these sparks, which are right now being held captive on the other side. So the answer is clear. The way forward is clear. Exert yourself. Sacrifice the moment for the future of your children. For the sake of the well-being of the world. For the arrival of the Messiah. For peace on earth. If you don't have any other care about yourself, care about the world. Care about God. Think about the suffering of the Shekhinah. Because you have the power to restore the balance that has been disrupted by our abundant sins that have accumulated over the thousands of years that we have been in exile. You have that power. And don't doubt yourself. Don't fall for the illusion that you are incapable of reaching holiness, because that is the voice of the evil inclination that strives to distract you and weaken you from achieving this tikkun. So I hope that this message was clear. Rabbi Abachatzera is giving us a lesson of a lifetime on what we should expect and what we are right now seeing before our eyes as the final exile, final stage before the redemption really arrives, to restore these sparks that are in the heels of the other side, back to their place in the heels of the side of holiness. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Put your questions in the comments. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Hey everybody, thanks for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't be afraid to share this video with your loved ones, as we know that we are trying to reach as many souls as we possibly can with the wisdom of the Torah, specifically its inner dimensions called Kabbalah, which is the mystical secrets that are contained within God's holy Torah. And I invite you to join me on this effort to spreading this wisdom to the four corners of the world so we can prepare for what we've all been waiting for, the final redemption, where Israel will be redeemed along with the righteous Gentiles.